Good afternoon again from the Monastery of All Saints of North America and the Canadian Orthodox Broadcasting.ca. I'm going to continue the reading of the book on the Toll House myth and reminding people that somehow a segment of the life of Basil the Bogomil worked its way into some of the Synaxaria under the name of Basil the New, or St. Basil the New. But Basil the Bogomil, who was finally executed during the reign of Alexis Comnenus as emperor, Anna Comnenus records this for us, along with some of her writings about the great difficulties and troubles that the Bogomils were creating in Bulgaria, particularly in Thrace, because Thrace was, at the time, 8th to 9th century, almost entirely Gnostic. Paulicians and Bogomils dominated. There was a certain Gregory of Thrace who, more likely a Paulician than a Bogomil, although because he was a landowner, it could have been a Bogomil as well. Many of the wealthiest homes in Constantinople were Bogomil at that time. And Bogomil influence was extremely strong, moving into Western Europe under the name of Cathars and Albigensians. And the distress caused by Basil the Bogomil was so great that they finally had to execute him to keep from having divisions in the empire itself. So we'll go into that a little later. We'll discuss the so-called life of Saint Basil the New, who was in fact Basil the Bogomil. And we'll discuss that at some length after we've finished with this book on the Toll House myth, and maybe one other. Chapter 4, The Fathers. Following the Holy Fathers is an expression which commonly introduces official documents of the Church. The Orthodox look to them as the supreme expositors of the Christian faith. As expositors or interpreters, exegetes, of the Holy Scripture, there is no higher authority than the Fathers. So it is that Father Seraphim Rose turned to them in order to find support for his opinions on life after death. We too must look to the Fathers, not only to show how the hieromonk of Platina has shamelessly misused them, but also to determine what is the true doctrine of the Fathers on the question before us. A few examples should suffice. Several times, Father Seraphim calls for support from the spiritual homilies of Pseudo-Macarius. We discussed before that the spiritual homilies are well known not to have been written by Macarius at all, because St. Macarius the Great wrote absolutely nothing in his lifetime. Anyway, here's the quote that Father Seraphim had given. Like the tax collectors sitting in the narrow ways and laying hold upon passers-by and extorting from them, so the devils spy upon our souls and lay hold of them. And when they pass out of the body, if they were not perfectly cleansed, they do not suffer them to mount up to the mansions of heaven and to meet their Lord, and they are driven down by the devils of the air. But if whilst they were in the flesh, it doesn't complete it. Reading this version of the Saint's Discourse, one would probably agree that he taught the Toll House theory, but let us look at the entire passage. Just as the winds, this is correct translation, the entire passage. Just as the winds blowing powerfully, shall all creatures in the sky produce a very loud sound. Likewise does the power of the enemy shake our thoughts and carry them away, stirring the depths of the heart at will, while scattering those thoughts for his own purposes. Like tax collectors, who sit along the narrow street, extorting money from passers-by, so also the demons watch carefully and grab hold of souls. And when the thoughts pass out of the body, notice it's when the thoughts pass out of the body. He does not say when they pass out of the body. You see, a father of the church would never refer to the soul as when they pass out of the body. Refer to the person, rather, when they pass out of the body, referring to the person passing out of the body, because that would be heretical to make that kind of a dualism between the soul and the body. No father of the church would do that, because that would make the father of the church teaching a heresy of Gnostic dualism. So when the thoughts pass out of the body, if they have not been completely purified, they are not permitted to reach the heavenly mansions to meet its master. Rather, they are driven down by the demons of the air. If, however, they are yet in the flesh, they shall... He doesn't finish the quote in the book. But here's the point, you see. Can any one of you, no matter how deep your faith, how profoundly you believe, how often you pray, how often you take communion, can any one of you say that you're completely, totally, absolutely purified? Or that when you come to the end of your life and your soul tears itself away from the body, can any one of you suggest that you might at that moment be totally, completely, absolutely purified? You see, in the teaching of the Ariel Toll House, there's no point to even bother with the teaching, because nobody's going to get to heaven anyway, because nobody is going to depart this life completely purified. It's just simply not going to happen. Clearly, Macarius refers to a soul which, though it's through its thoughts, seeks to transcend the limitations of the human body. Thoughts are born in the soul, or more precisely, the spirit. Thus the devil and his spy watch carefully, or spy upon the soul, in order to discover some weakness in it. In that way, the demons can prevent our thoughts from soaring to heavenly mansions. Father Seraphim draws once more upon the pseudo-Macarius, using the Mason's test, using the Mason's less accurate translation. He quotes the 22nd homily: "When the soul of a man departs out of the body, a great mystery is there accomplished. If it is under the guilt of sins, there come a horde of demons and angels of the left hand and powers of darkness, take over the soul and hold fast to it on their side. No one ought to be surprised at this. If while alive in this world, man has been subject and compliant to them, and himself their bondsman, how much more when he departs this world is he kept down and held fast by them." Now a correct translation from Means Petrology: "When the soul of a man departs this body, a great mystery occurs. If he is yet under guilt of sin, bands of demons and angels of the left powers of darkness descend upon the soul and drag it as a prisoner to their own place. None should be surprised at this, for if while in this life a man lives in subjection to them, and was their obedient slave, how much more when he leaves this world shall he be captive and controlled by them? When the righteous leave their bodies, band of angels receive their souls and carry them to their side, to pure eternity, and so they are with the Lord." First of all, there's no mention of toll houses and judgment of demons. People are simply identified with demons or angels and join their company in this thing. But notice what is left out of Father Seraphim's quote, because he doesn't want it to be there. That the righteous, that is the faithful, those who believe in God, when they depart, bands of holy angels come to receive their souls and carry them to pure eternity. That didn't suit Father Seraphim Rosa's purpose, so he left it out intentionally. But you see, the toll houses have absolutely no meaning and no significance. Those who are faithful, who believe, who strove in this life, at least to have a living faith and to be with Christ, the angels are going to come and gather them and take them to pure eternity. Those who belong to the devil in this life simply continue to belong to the devil. Nevertheless, everyone, righteous and unrighteous, evil, those who even worship the devil in this life, all of them must stand to account before the judgment seat of Jesus Christ. The idea that demons prevent them from being judged by Christ or from facing the last judgment is really heretical. It's just simply heretical. There is no mention of toll houses here, but more important is this. Why did Father Seraphim omit the last few sentences of the homily? Why indeed? Why did he not inform us that the pseudo St. Macarius believes that, while evil spirits will claim their own, the angels of the Lord will take believers to dwell with the Lord? In other words, the latter do not pass through a gauntlet of demons before they reach pure eternity. Of course, the wicked have absolutely no need to do so. They are already chosen to belong to Satan. So they're not going to go through any toll houses either. Let us take two more examples before presenting the Christian doctrine of the Fathers. From St. Gregory the Dialogist and St. Anthony the Great. In the second book of his homilies on the Gospel, Pope St. Gregory urges his listeners to ponder what verdict the strict judge might render concerning their lives. This translation is from the original Latin. We should think very seriously about that dreadful hour of our resolution. Think of it with trepidation of mind, recalling how many evils, with apprehension of the strict judge. How can we delight in this present life when we know that everything passes away? What we love shall perish. It begins where sorrow never ends. Then too shall the wicked spirits look for their own works in the soul, as it goes forth. Then will they display the evil deeds which they instigated in us, so that they drag it down with them to torment. The perversity of the demons may even touch the elect as they depart this life, seeking in them something of their own, if they are able. Among all men, there was one who said before his passion, I will no longer. Thus, in our concern, we must reflect daily, with many tears, upon how dreadful will be the claims of the ruler of this age on the day of our death. Here's Father Seraphim's English translation of Bishop Ignatiu Brentaninos' Russian translation of a Greek version of the original Latin. One must reflect deeply on how frightful the hour of death is for us. What terror the soul will then experience. What remembrance of all evils. What forgetfulness of past happiness. What fear and what apprehension of the judge. Then the evil spirits will seek out in the departing soul its deeds. Then they present before its view the sins toward which they had disposed it, so as to drag their accomplice to torment. But why do we speak only of the sinful soul when they come even to the chosen among the dying and seek out their own in them? Among men there was only one who before his suffering fearlessly said, Hereafter I speak not much with you, for the prince of the world comes and has nothing in me. Compare the wording of the first translation, especially so as to drag their accomplices with them to torment, and the Seraphim Rose translation, so as to drag their accomplices to torment. He has maintained all the time that those who fail the toll house interrogation are dragged to hell. If we accept Father Seraphim's English wording, there is surely an allusion to the toll houses, but his from Latin to Russian to English, and I think it may have been from Latin through another language, although Brianchaninoff, no doubt, was fluent in Latin. From Latin to Russian to English translation is faulty. The word so as to drag their accomplice with them. Was this intentionally excluded by him? To torment. Refer to the judgment day of the second coming. Because as St. Mark of Ephesus tells us, there is no hell. And hell will not exist, and the demons will not go into the torment until after the second coming and the last judgment. It's not possible for demons to drag anyone down to hell. First of all, because they couldn't go into hell without the body, without the resurrection. That's very clearly the teaching of the Holy Fathers. There's absolutely no question or doubt about that. Secondly, as St. Mark of Ephesus clearly tells us, hell, Gehenna, does not even exist yet. So what's being said here by Gregory the Dialogist is really at the time of the last judgment, not when the soul departs the body, but after the judgment, after they've appeared before Christ's judgment. Then the demons take their own and take them with them. For neither heaven nor hell exist until the second coming, the second judgment, the resurrection of the body, so that the body and soul together can be reunited, so the whole person is present, and then they receive the reward. Father Seraphim is wrong for another reason. That the demons seek something of their own in the departing soul, even the righteous, is hardly something new. It is their pleasure, their reason for being, not only to lead us into sin, but to accuse falsely of sin every soul, whether in the body or out of the body. The demons want human company in hell. But Father Seraphim applies much more. He believes that the toll houses exist to determine the fitness of the soul to dwell in heaven. Stop and think about that. Think about what that's saying. That Satan is going to determine whether we're fit to dwell in heaven. Not God, not Jesus Christ, not Michael the Archangel, not Gabriel. But the Satan is going to be allowed, that liar, that murderer, that one who seeks to deceive and to destroy every human soul, he's going to be the one who determines whether we're fit to dwell in heaven or not? Think about that. Father Rose was just wrong about St. Pope Gregory, as he was about the other Holy Fathers. He nevertheless manages to convince himself that one way or another they support his Gnosticism. He is persuaded also that there is an experience of the toll houses not only after death, but even before death. He gives us one of the many and clear examples, or so he calls them, from St. Athanasius' life of St. Anthony. During prayer, St. Anthony was seized by the Holy Spirit and raised up by the angel into heights. His ascent was opposed by demons of the air. They accused him of many sins, but the angels closed their mouths of their slanders. Immediately Anthony came to himself and found himself standing in the same place where he had stood in prayer. We'll find out from a few other fathers, by the way, this also is testimony that there's no such thing as out-of-body experiences. The imagination can go out of the body. The soul cannot depart from the body until the instant of death. The soul does not have out-of-body experiences. And here we see St. Anthony found himself standing in his own place, in his own body. He had experienced the whole thing in his own body. Now, a little later, we'll see some of the Holy Fathers telling us that Apostle Paul was indeed in his own body when he was caught up. And St. Simeon, the new theologian, will tell us the same of himself in his own experience. He forgot about everything and remained all night in prayer, with tears and groans, reflecting on the multitude of man's enemies and the battle against such an array, on the difficulty of the path to heaven through the air, and on the words of the apostles, our wrestling is not with flesh and blood. He's quoting Ephesians. St. Paul, knowing that the aerial powers were seeking only one thing, hoped to impede our free passage to heaven. How does Father Seraphim describe this event? Here it is. We have seen above that the experience of St. Anthony the Great with the toll houses was during an out-of-body experience. And a little later we're going to demonstrate that the idea of an out-of-body experience is absolutely, completely, and totally heretical. That is simply not possible for it to occur. That it didn't occur with Apostle Paul or anyone else. But we'll see that from the Holy Fathers a little later here. These remarks are important. They illustrate the lack of care with which he does his research. Nowhere in St. Anthony's encounter with the demons is there any mention of toll houses, nor is he detained, nor does he see souls detained by them. Father Seraphim labels the saint's experience as out-of-body experience, But it was not his soul, but he himself, St. Anthony, who was carried to the heights, not to invisible realms. He was slandered by demons whose mouths were shut by angels, an aspect of the afterlife experience not mentioned in Rose's definition of his toll house theory. Apparently, it is unthinkable that the influence of the aerial demons exists only in this world, and that St. Anthony had an in-the-body experience with the demons in the heights of the air. They will accuse all men at the final judgment, as they do now, and at the hour of our death. But this is not the same as stopping the soul at the toll houses or customs houses, as some Gnostics call them, adjudicating the soul worthy or unworthy of heaven, releasing it or casting it into hell. Think about that also, that the demons are able to prevent Christ from fulfilling his judgment, and in place of him do the judgment. Those liars, those murderers, are greater than Christ. They're going to prevent him from being the one who judges us and judges themselves. That's the teaching of Seraphim Rose. Falling asleep is a Christian phrase which describes death, the separation of body and soul. At the moment of death, the individual is prejudged by God. The body goes into the ground, and the soul, now without any senses or physical instrumentality, is sent into a temporary state of joy or grief. That is the teaching of the Church. Listen to St. Gregory the Theologian's oration at the funeral of his brother Casarius. I believe the words of the wise, and that every fair and God-beloved soul, when set free from the bonds of the body, departs hence and at once, instantly, ethos, enjoys a sense and vision, theoria, of good things to come, inasmuch as what was dark in it has been purged or laid aside, and feels a wondrous pleasure and exaltation, and rejoices in the Lord. Then a little later it will receive its flesh, which once shared in its pursuit of things above. And as it shared the hardships of the body through a common life, so also is bestowed upon the body the joys of the soul hereafter, gathering it up into itself and becoming with it, in spirit and mind, in God. I await the voice of the archangel, the last trumpet, the transformation of the heavens. Then shall I see Casarius himself, no longer an exile, no longer spread upon the bier, no longer the object of mourning and pity, but brilliant, glorious, heavenly. Such as in my dreams I have often beheld thee, dearest and most loving brother, in very truth, if not by my desire. In the words of St. Ambrose, body and soul are judged together. If for no other reason, Father Seraphim's toll house theory is false. It does not recognize the common judgment belonging to body and soul. Christ alone judges all men. There can be no judgment of the soul without the body. There can only be the soul coming to a knowledge of its destiny. As the body decays in the grave, the soul immediately enters the left or the right, in what's sometimes called Hades, meaning the condition or state before the second coming, before the second great judgment, to await judgment with its body. Thus, as the corpse must remain in the grave until the general resurrection when it reunites with the soul, so the soul must remain where it is gone until it rejoins its body. As St. John Chrysostom says, nor indeed is it possible for a soul torn away from the body to wander here any more. Pay attention to that when you read these Gnostic and hysterical tales about why we serve the 3rd, 9th, and 40th day divine services. Nor indeed is it possible for a soul torn away from the body to wander here any more. For the souls of the righteous are in the hand of God, and the souls of sinners are also led away hence. This is evident from the parable of Lazarus and the rich man, and elsewhere also Christ says, this day your soul will be required of you. Therefore, when the soul has gone forth from the body, it cannot wander here. nor is the reason hard to understand. For if we, going about in the earth, which is familiar and well known to us, as once we did when encompassed with a body, journeys down a strange road, know not which way to go unless guided, how should the bodiless soul, having lost her accustomed condition, know where to walk without someone to show it the way? The soul has no sensual means without the body. The body is given as an instrument of the soul to see, to hear, to speak. Without the body, it can do none of those things. And we shall see, and this is where some rather malicious individuals suggest that the Holy Fathers are teaching soul sleep, when they tell us that the soul can't function in a psychophysical manner after it departs the body. Some rather malicious people accuse the Holy Fathers of teaching soul slumber, because the Holy Fathers clearly teach that the soul has no psychophysical functions when it's departed from the body. See, it's a Gnostic teaching to suggest that the soul has complete psychophysical functioning once it's left the body, because Gnostics, of course, disdain the body and think that it's a prison of the soul, and that the soul functions better without the body. So God made a mistake then, of course, by creating the body and putting the soul into it, evidently. To be sure, God may cause us to have visions of a departed person, even as St. Columban appeared to St. Brendan, or the three hierarchs to St. John of Evchaita. But these occurrences involve no disincarnate spirit, to use Father Seraphim's theosophical language, wandering the earth. No, not in this world nor in the next. Neither does the soul float like some ghost around its dead body, not for 3 days, nor 9, nor 40. The soul resides where it is taken. Father Seraphim is wrong to identify the sleep of the soul with the vulgar doctrine of modern sectarians. He is right, however, to insist upon the soul's awareness of its new existence. Although sleeping soundly, the soul, as if in a dream, exclaimed St. Afrahat the Persian, sees something of what the Lord has promised to give it. The soul either rejoices or laments after death, writes St. Anastasios of Sinai. Also, judging from the parable of Lazarus and the rich man, even those in the place of torment recollect their life on earth. We should be careful with this one, because St. Mark of Ephesus says that the parable has a totally different meaning, and that nothing like this has actually occurred. It's only a parable, meaning that the rich man would not already be in hell, and the poor man would not already be in heaven, because it's a parable about things to come. Actually, it's a teaching about the resurrection of Jesus Christ, where even if one were raised from the dead, they wouldn't believe him. The rich man, cognizant of his earthly life, pleads with Father Abraham to send someone to warn his 5 brothers about the fate that awaits them. The patriarch replies that they have Moses and the prophets to help them avoid the torment, which he endures. Moreover, the dead may be affected by the prayers of the living. We pray for the departed, writes St. Peter of Damascus, that they may receive salvation. And of course the Theotokos and the saints hear the living and intercede for them, as well as the prayers they offer for the departed. This they do by the will of God, and not by virtue of some power inherent in the soul. In other words, the saints function in a realm of grace far beyond what we could aspire to, or which we could suggest was our lot. The great saints, we're not the saints. We don't have this grace, this deepness of union with God. Consequently, the souls of saints function on a higher plane. And certainly the Theotokos is already resurrected and restored to her body. So she has full everything. Thus the Holy Fathers teach that God controls the destiny of the soul. God controls the destiny of the soul. The demons do not control the destiny of the human soul. Where it shall dwell, what powers it retains after the separation from the flesh. The devil has no authority over the soul, asserts St. John Chrysostom, quote, having not the power to bring violence upon the soul, whether in the body or after its departure from it. But according to the words of the Lord, the beggar died and was carried away by the angels. Not only the souls of the righteous, but also the souls of the wicked are carried away. Not only the souls of the righteous, but also the souls of the wicked are carried away by the angels of God. Both the righteous and the wicked abide in a conscious but immovable state in Hades, with the exception of the glorified Savior, the Mother of God, and the glorified saints. The Church prays for her dead, her members, who have gone over to the other side. They are still sons and daughters. By her pleading, he forgives their sins and alleviates their pain. More about this matter a little later. And we'll go on to the chapter on the lives of the saints a little later. Some of the teachings in the lives of the saints, of course, shouldn't be given much credence because the lives of the saints from one century to another might differ in their contents and what they say in really substantial manners. The people who put together the lives of the saints, Saint Dmitry of Rostov, for example, in the Ukraine, and Saint Simeon Metaphrastis, some of the lives differ quite radically. And lives of saints before Saint Simeon Metaphrastis, some of them were so fantastic and filled with so much fables and almost nursery tales that Metaphrastis edited those out because they built up and accrued. And what happens is that when people write a life of a saint, they want to add some sermonizing, some of their own ideas or thoughts. So they put this in the form of a kind of sermonizing. The demon said this and the saint replied that, and the demon said this and the saint replied that sort of thing. And they'll add elements that are popular and current in their own lifetime, which then might pass out of popularity and currency, and the next person will edit the same life of the saint and edit those things out of it, or add something else in that's current in his time. So the lives of the saints are inspirational reading, but absolutely you cannot make any kind of doctrine or dogma from them. It's simply not possible to do that without falling into very serious heresies. But anyway, we'll examine that next from Father Reverend Dr. Mark Alasko. Thank you all, and God bless you.